Welcome to BizTech's CEO Conversation Show, the show where we engage industry leaders to share insights into how they run and grow their businesses. Today, our conversation is with Puneet Pasricha, the CEO of Liberty Insurance Berhad, the Malaysian operations of the Liberty Mutual Insurance Group from the US, the sixth largest global property and casualty insurer. Now, Liberty Mutual also ranks number 75 on Fortune 100 list of corporations in the US. Now, welcome to the show, Puneet.
Hey, thanks for having me over, Brian. It's an absolute pleasure. Looking forward to our discussion.
Now, Puneet, or Pasha, as you're more popularly known as, could you start by giving us a quick overview of Liberty Insurance in Malaysia?
Yeah, so Liberty Insurance in Malaysia has been in existence for 44 years now. We, in fact, completed our 44th year this year. But it had various avatars before. It was known as Sea Insurance, then it was known as UniAsia, and Liberty acquired a majority stake in 2015, and that's where our journey in Malaysia started as Liberty Insurance, right? And it's been a journey. We were predominantly a motor player. Motor is still our lead line, but what we've been able to do over the years has been to expand our non-motor product portfolio as well. We've been able to build our capabilities and skill sets in terms of people. And last but not the least, and I know it's a topic of discussion nowadays, but we actually started our digital journey much earlier, way back in 2018, and that's something we can talk more about, but that's something which we embarked on a while back and has positioned us well during the pandemic and as we go forward. So in a sense, global company with legacy, but a strong local connection as well.
Okay, and I'm going to, you've touched on a couple of points. I'm going to come back to you, particularly digital transformation. But in your product and service lines, as you mentioned, motor or mobility insurance has been your core, but you're also involved in home, business, travel, and personal accident, as well as health. What are your biggest contributors to the bottom line?
So from a bottom line standpoint, actually, a lot of people feel motor is a laggard. It's actually not. If you get your strategy right, play in the right areas, motor can contribute to the bottom line as well. But besides motor, where we've actually seen a lot of traction from a bottom line standpoint, from a product portfolio standpoint, has been actually fire product, and miscellaneous products which serve the SME customer. We've got a good mix of large corporates, mid corporates, but SMEs is where we see a lot of good traction coming from a profitability standpoint. But the other piece, and Brian, you have to take a step back and see, look at it not only from a product portfolio standpoint, right? Because that's one piece of the puzzle. We also have to see how have we been able to make improvements in our internal processes, efficiencies, where while improving the service cycles or service offerings to our customers, how have we been able to reduce expenses as well? Because expenses is the other part of the puzzle, which we need to keep a key eye on. And that's in entirety, if you look at it, that's how we've been growing our bottom line.
Okay, and health is also part of your portfolio. That's an area which is a growth area for many insurers. What does that portfolio look like for you?
So health is a part of our portfolio, but I'll be absolutely honest here and say, hey, it's not a big part of our portfolio. Health is not something which strategically we have pursued in the market as yet in Malaysia. A&H is something which we feel we need to build our capabilities on before we embark on that journey. And that is something which we have in mind from a 5-year strategic standpoint. However, as I mentioned again, it's been motor, and then we've been focusing on other non-motor products such as fire, engineering, liability, miscellaneous lines such as marine, office packages. Again, it's all about the target segment, and we've kept closer to where we feel we can probably leverage on our capabilities globally and get more better strategies to the market.
Now, Pasha, you've been in Malaysia coming up to 3 years. I think you arrived in March 2019. How has the overall industry landscape changed during this time? And particularly, I want to start the discussion around the de-tariffication discussion.
So it's nice to know you've been stalking me, but I'm just kidding. Yes, I did move here in March of 2019. And then I'll give you some part of my journey, which I can kind of relate to how the market has evolved as well, right? When I moved here, I actually moved here as a chief operating officer, uh, mainly focusing on claims and operations, right? And then in 1st of Jan 2020 is when I took over as a CEO. But if I was to start looking at 2019, right, I think I saw a fundamental shift where insurers had realized that motor may not be as commoditized as it had been earlier, because de-tariffication did come about a couple of years before that in 2017, if you actually see in the true sense, right? And yes, there was a band in terms of discount and allowed from a 10% up or 10% down, so ceiling and a floor. Right, what that did is it forced insurers, or it made them think to look beyond just price. Price cannot be the only conversation, right? And as you get out of a commoditized market, you start figuring out, hey, there is a value which the consumers subscribe to service levels, right? There is a value which consumers will likely subscribe to product as well. So as I've seen the ecosystem evolve, I've seen not only within Liberty, but even from our competitor standpoint, insurers actually looking at seeing how can we improve our customer service levels, how can we probably have better product offerings to the customer, because as I said, the conversation at some point has to move away from price. So that's an evolution which I have definitely seen. The other piece, which at least within Liberty we've been focusing on is big data. How do we bring data analytics, or how do we leverage data analytics to drive a competitive edge? Because data analytics can tell you a story. It is able to segment customers. It is able to segment our business partners appropriately, and then start catering to those needs, and marrying that data analytics and digital, according to me, going forward, could make the difference. And then lastly, I would like to emphasize is you got to have a voice, or a keen voice to what the customer really wants. And sometimes it's easier, or in the past, I had seen, at least in the early days, where we would make a lot of assumptions. Hey, this is what's going to work for the customer, and sitting in our boardrooms making assumptions are easier. But you got to go down to the grassroots and actually ask them, hey, what are your pain points, and what are you looking for from us, rather than trying to assume or come to that answer on your own. So I think these are some fundamental shifts I've seen, and definitely going forward, I see a shift toward digital for sure, insurtech for sure. And I know we can talk more about it, but this, in essence, is some of the paradigm shifts I'm seeing in the market over the last 3 years I've been here.
And Pasha, one of the things, and this is also linked to the digital discussion, is how distribution has changed. Because in the past, Malaysia has been very agent focused, but how much of a change have you seen in terms of digital distribution channels developing for you?
Completely. I think it's not only about Malaysia, but even for Liberty, yes, but even for Malaysia as well. I think you said it correctly. You called it out right. It has been agency driven, but we are seeing a multi-channel approach, which is going to work in a country like Malaysia. And why do I say that? Right? We also realize that the penetration is pretty low in a country. Right? The market is small. The market is small. It's not because it doesn't have the upside or it doesn't have the potential. It's just that the penetration is low. So I think that's something which has also driven insurers to adopt a multi-channel approach, and Liberty has done that as well. We've moved not only the agent still stays our focus, right? An agent is still is our strong partner. channel, but there are other channels which have evolved. There are channels such as franchise which have evolved. There are channels such as affinity relationships or affinity partnerships. What that means is partnerships in adjacent spaces, not in the core insurance space, which have evolved. There are partnerships where we are looking at B2B2C, again, driven completely by digital.
Give us some examples of these partnerships and who are your partners that you're partnering with to execute these strategies?
Yeah, so I won't get into naming some of the partners for obvious reasons, Brian, and I hope you can understand that. But we are partnering with some of our business partners or agents or brokers who actually are able to reach out to a wider audience. So, for example, and let me give you a simple example, right? It's not new. Worksite marketing has always existed, but it never took off. Right? It never took off because you would go the traditional route, set up a counter. Brian is an agent. He comes to me and says, "Hey, Pasha, I have a big corporate as a client, and they have 500 employees, and I think we can reach out to them. Let's set up a counter and in their office and get some of the traction going." That did not take off, and obviously did not take off because I think no one wants. I mean, imagine when you've been walking into malls and someone says, "Hey, Brian, would you like to check out our credit card?" You probably walk by, right? Because it's all about the convenience. It's about at that point of time you are not in the mindset of shopping for insurance, right?
Yes.
But the moment you provide the right digital platform from an ease and access standpoint, that changes the game completely, right? The moment you start sitting down with your agent and say, "Oh, okay, this is the corporate, but let's understand who their employees are. What's the demographic? What's going to make them tick in terms of a product? Is it something, a standard product they want? Because one size cannot fit all." The moment you start having these conversations, right, it shifts. The game shifts completely. Right? So those are things which we are looking at. Another example is we are working with a couple of companies who are not in insurance or financial services at all. That's not their core business area. The business area is completely different, service oriented, reaches mass audience. But what we are working with them is saying, "Hey, over a digital platform, can we weave together a product offering which marries your core product and insurance sits on top of it?" So it gives a more tailor-made, more comprehensive offering to the customer at a better price. And from a convenience standpoint, it's just easy to transact. So I think these are some of the plays which we are seeing in the market for sure. But as we evolve, I also think ecosystems may evolve as well. Before this discussion, Brian, we were talking about health ecosystems.
Yes.
And that's something which we have seen evolve in other markets, and we are seeing some traction in Asia as well. China is a market where it's evolved pretty well, and I think the time is probably right that is going to evolve as we go forward, and that's where I was talking about our health strategy, where we are looking at it from a futuristic standpoint to get the right product where there are product gaps, and in the right form for the customer, where it's not only insurance, it's an entire health package which the customer can look at. So these are some of the plays. I mean, I can talk about, you wanted examples. As I said, I won't name the partners I'm working with, but these are some areas we're looking at.
Pasha, how about, because one of the characteristics of the Malaysian market is we are a tremendously underinsured market. There are reasons in terms of culture. There's also cost reasons, especially during the pandemic. Have you rolled out micro insurance products or lower cost products to basically drive adoption of lower cost offerings?
No, I think it's a fantastic point, right? I think you hit the nail on the head on this one, right? And I think what you're saying is something which was kind of known, but has been accentuated because of the pandemic. I think a lot of people have taken a hit because insurance product is not only of the coverage, it's also about the affordability, right? It has to be marry both especially when we talk about microinsurance, especially when we talk about B40, right? So just to give you an example, one big segment which has taken a hit in the pandemic has been the SMEs, right? They've definitely taken a hit from a financial standpoint, from a business continuity standpoint. Now, what historically the product which they looked at was fire or at the most burglary, right? But now, I think with COVID, they realize, hey, I need to have a business interruption product because that is what matters to me. Now, unfortunately, the business interruption product that exists today exists for the large corporates. If I was to even take that to the SMEs, they're probably not going to understand it. It's not even going to be meeting their expectation or their needs, right? And at the time, if they have to fill up 5 sheets or 6 sheets of a proposal form, which a corporate can because they have the right employee set to do that,
Exactly.
it's not going to be possible. So I think these are steps which we have to take. If you ask me, these are steps which we are taking to understand better what the consumer wants in terms of micro insurance and where the needs exist. But if you actually step back, there are certain products which we were able to get out for a different segment. Just to give you an example, cyber, right? I mean, a lot of folks have been transacting more online, and that opens all of us to cyber risks, which is pretty evident. But from a consumer standpoint, consumer doesn't want a cyber product which is a whole 9 yards, right? A basic homeowner wants only a cyber product, and this is what the consumer research pointed us towards was, hey, can I get a product which covers me in case my identity is stolen, right? Because that's your biggest fear. Can someone misuse my identity to steal or to take my credit card information, my bank information, etc., right? So we actually launched that product just 2 months ago. We launched that product in partnership with a bank, and then we got some good traction. So that's taken off. We were able to launch landlord insurance in the pandemic. A lot of folks, a lot of the people who wanted to rent out apartments in the pandemic were worried, hey, what if my, the deposit is not insured, right? And then for the people who wanted to rent, they were like, geez, if this time I want to give a 2 month deposit, it's going to be tough for me from the pocket. So we actually rolled out a product which kind of took care of both of them. So these are
very innovative.
So we are looking at things like that, and micro insurance is something which is next on our agenda. It's definitely next on the agenda. But I think besides doing the right research to come out with a product which does not have all the bells and whistles, and it's a more stripped down product which matches the need, it has to be affordable, right? And the third piece is, which you spoke about, it's not only about coming up with the right product coverage at the right price, but making them aware of why they need it, right? Because insurance for that segment is not something top of the mind. It's a push product. It's not a pull product. And I think creating that awareness through the right channel partners and training and influencers probably in the local city or town which they live in, I think that's also going to be key. According to me, if we got to get it right, it's not going to only be about just getting a product out there. That has no meaning unless the other boxes are checked as well.
So Pasha, really comes back to what you said earlier in the conversation around digital transformation. It is not only about using it to innovate, but it's also to drive down cost by basically greater efficiency. And in your case also then, because of digital transformation, you are able to then innovate and come up with new products that basically are more affordable and more appropriate for different customer segments.
Absolutely, Brian. If I was to call this out across 3 key pillars, right? Value, how do you provide value to the consumer in terms of services, in terms of product, and obviously value to your partners and the company. Access. How do you provide access to them, to these products? Which means, as going back, we got to look beyond agency channel. We got to go with a multi-channel approach so that you not only provide that access to them where they are able to access these products, in the end of the day, you're also increasing penetration. So you're working for the community and the sector at large. And the last is providing ease, right? Ease of transaction. How do I provide a more omni-channel, experience in a more agile fashion? So value, access, and ease is something from a digital standpoint we need to look at, and that's the way we should look at going forward.
But what are your key plans and objectives then for 2022? What sort of top line and bottom line numbers are you looking at next year?
Yeah, so Brian, I mean, without getting into any forward-looking projections, right? If I was to look at key focus areas, would definitely be keep consolidating our position in motor, right? Whether it's through efficient or effective distribution practices and agile underwriting infrastructure or digital platforms. The other area, as I mentioned earlier on, is for sure is our focus area is to diversify our non-motor product portfolio, and our non-motor expansion is something which is going to be key to those plans for 22 as well. 3, digital. I think if we have to win in the marketplace, we have to win with digital, and that's what we are calling it within our system. We call it win with digital, and that's something we need to do. What do I mean? We need to improve our processes. We need to simplify our processes. We need to automate, and we have to enhance our product portfolio while we map and improve our customer journey. Right. So that's something which we will look at. Insurance. We are in the business of paying claims, and then that's something which we value a lot and we take pride in. And then claims excellence is something which we will keep working on and focusing on, because honestly, that's where the rubber hits the road, if you have to call it. The key moment of truth for us from a customer standpoint and validation or gratification, if you call it, is that claims experience. So that's something which we will keep focusing on. And then we have been doing that every year. And lastly, while I've always maintained it, the pandemic showed it. Our biggest asset is our people. And when I say people, I mean our business partners and our employees. And then creating a diverse and inclusive workforce, which is engaged and vibrant, is something which we have to keep working on, whether it's in terms of creating more capabilities for them, building their skill sets, or empowering them much more to take business decisions. So I think these are some focus areas we will be looking at for next year.
Now, Pasha, thank you so much for taking your time to be on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot, Brian. Thanks for having me over.
Now, I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to Puneet Pasricha, the CEO of Liberty Insurance Berhad, on BizTech's CEO Conversation Show. This video and podcast will be on our various social media platforms, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.